I'm Tia Graham.
And I'm Robyn Vincent. Today on the show, we start with public transit. Southeast Michigan has invested heavily in recovery.
But for riders, the measure is simple. Does the bus come when it's supposed to?
Then we trace the early life of Detroit Red, before we knew him as Malcolm X.
And we'll hear about new books that revive overlooked voices and movements,
reminding us how culture, faith, and language shape struggles for justice.
Infrastructure, ideas, and the stories that endure. This is The Metro.
We begin with how people get around and how they don't. After years of pandemic disruption, driver shortages, and declining public trust, Southeast Michigan's transit agencies say they're finally back on their feet. There are new labor contracts, new buses on the way, on-demand service pilots, even a regional transit app designed to knit a fragmented system together. But recovery doesn't always feel like progress, especially if you're still waiting 40 minutes for a bus that's supposed to come every 10. At a recent State of Transit meeting hosted by Transportation Riders United, transit leaders struck a cautiously optimistic tone. They said the crisis is over, but questions remain about access, equity, and reliability. Joining me now is Noah Kincade. He leads Detroit Documenters. That's a civic journalism program where trained residents attend public meetings, they take detailed notes, and they help the rest of us stay informed. Noah, welcome back.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So first, one of those documenters, Ebony Williams, was at the State of Transit meeting, and Ebony is a transit rider herself.
I have to wait over an hour sometimes for a bus. That was so packed, it just skipped stops. So while the official reports say things are improving, riders like me still feel the struggle.
So Ebony is saying there's still a lot to do when it comes to reliable, regular service. Noah, looking across what transit leaders laid out, what stands out to you as the biggest signs of progress right now?
You know, I think that everyone is working together for the first time. It really seems like the leaders of all these various transit agencies and policymakers are all recognizing how important it is to have a working, functioning public transit system here in Southeast Michigan.
So they're seeing that these different systems cannot operate in a vacuum. They have to become much more connective. Where are riders, though, still likely to feel the system coming up short?
When they're waiting for the bus, right? When they're standing there in the cold, or maybe there's still not a shelter or there's not a bench. These are systemic problems that we've had for a really long time, and they are all kind of getting addressed at various paces, right, depending on the urgency. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, if you have to rely on public transportation to get to work, and that means you have to leave your house 2 hours earlier than if you had a car, that's still a problem.
It's a huge problem. And when you talk about waiting for a bus in these temperatures, right, that is especially oppressive and disruptive to the day and potentially dangerous. Now, DDOT highlighted new labor contracts, same-day paratransit, and a major federal grant that will allow nearly half the bus fleet to be replaced by 2027. How significant are those changes for day-to-day service in Detroit?
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. When documenters first started kind of documenting buses back in 2023, I think the drivers were getting paid around $16 an hour, which is crazy if you think about it. Like, why would you take on the responsibility of a bus full of all these people's lives are in your hands when you could just work a fast food drive-thru for the same amount of money, right?
That's right.
It didn't make sense. And that led to all these problems with shortages of drivers. So even if DDOT had the buses, they didn't have enough drivers because those same drivers could go work for Smart and make considerably more. And so just having pay equity across all these different systems is, we're not losing drivers every day to these other service providers. But then also, getting these grants changing over and getting new buses. These buses are just putting so many miles on them, and a lot of them that are on the road right now have passed their service life for DDOT anyway. And so being able to refreshen the fleet with fresh buses that can go another, 10, 15 years down the road is going to be, a massive improvement.
Shout out to the Detroit Documenters for continuously following the story of transit in Detroit in the way that you all have. At the same time, DDOT has acknowledged serious problems with its newer hybrid buses. About half of those aren't operating because of manufacturer issues. What does that situation reveal about the gap between investment and reliability?
Well, I think it just kind of points out like there's always going to be the unknown, right? I mean, they did everything they're supposed to be doing. They got 45 new buses. Their hybrid buses are going to be more, gas efficient, and I mean, this is a win across the board. But you don't expect there to be like a manufacturer's error that according to this is actually not from the State of Transit meeting, but from a meeting earlier last month. Director Robert Kramer said, like, only about half of those buses are on the road right now, and so they're trying to work it out. But there's always going to be something you're not planning for.
Right. That's right. This is the situation of the day, of the year, of the moment. SMART is increasing frequency on several major routes, but on-time performance remains well below the national standard. Why is reliability still such a challenge, even as the service is expanding?
Yeah, Tiffany Gunner talked about this a little bit. She said, it's on-time performance is not just about the bus like leaving the gate on time. It's about it not breaking down along its path, right?
Sure.
And it sounds like they're really putting a focus this year. She said their number one priority is improving their on-time performance so that it meets at least the 85% national standard. But she said a lot of that focus is going to be on preventative maintenance and just making sure that, that preventive maintenance is being done so these buses can stay on the road, assuming they leave on time and then can hit every stop on time.
So is this then a money issue? I mean, when you talk about preventative maintenance, that means that you have to invest more. And she's saying that there is the money to do that?
Actually, no. What she said following all of this was we need more riders, right? And so, it costs a lot of money to keep this massive fleet, and they're covering a 3-county area. So they're covering a larger area than probably any other transit provider in Southeast Michigan. And so really, they're doing everything they can to improve the on-time performance, but they need the riders and that revenue to support it. It's both sides have to do their part.
But Noah, you can't really get more riders if you don't have a reputation for being on time and reliable.
That's right. It's a chicken or the egg conundrum, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly what the solution is, but it sounds like they are putting in the investment up front to improve this, but to support that long term, they need the riders.
Now, there has been some notable growth. The RTA oversees services like the Q Line, DAX, D2A2, and the D2A2 has now reached about 10,000 monthly riders. We're talking about service between Detroit and Ann Arbor. What do these services show about when regional transit works and where ridership growth is still a challenge?
Well, I think RTA is a great example of like when regional transit works because they're literally kind of the agency that is working with all of the different agencies, and they're really the like unifying entity here. They're the ones who are going out and getting like big federal grants and state grants, and then they're dispersing it. But they're also the ones that are doing the hard research to figure out where are the gaps in this system. So they identified people who don't have a car. How do they get to the airport? Right. I live on the far east side. For me, if I take an Uber or a Lyft, it's about $50 each way. Right. So that's $100 round trip.
And then you're tipping as well. And also the price could be higher if there's traffic, if it's during a prime time.
Exactly. And even if you do have a car, it's no better because what are you going to do? Drive to the airport and then pay for the parking there? Right. That could be more than $100. Right. So they realized there needs to be a bus. Right. And they solved it with just a very simple solution. It's not the best solution, but there is a singular point downtown where you can go and 16 times a day, you can take a bus to the airport, and 16 times a day, you can get picked up from either terminal, Evans or McNamara. And that costs, if you book it in advance, it's $6, right? If you just show up at the door, I think it's like $8. And if you're a frequent user, you can buy a 50 pass booklet for $100. So for the same cost that you're going to take an Uber for one trip, you could do 50.
So as is the broader story of transit in Detroit, it's not perfect, but it is a step forward, and the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. Now, Wayne County voters will see a transit millage on the August primary ballot that would effectively eliminate municipal opt-outs, and that's for the first time. Why is this vote such a turning point for regional connectivity and equity?
Well, because it's going to mean for the first time the end of any area in the Tri-County area, Macomb, Oakland, Wayne, that where there's not going to be any. They're going to have blanket service after this, right? Assuming it passes, right? Mm-hmm. So there are still opt-outs in Wayne. Oakland got rid of theirs a couple of years ago. Macomb is completely connected. But if you are a Detroiter and you work in Livonia, you have to have a car. There's no other way for you to get there. Unless you want to take Uber or Lyft every day, right? Which is, cost prohibitive. Same with Plymouth, Canton. So people who live anywhere in this Tri-County area are going to be able to get anywhere in this Tri-County area. So you can live and work and be able to take public transit between those two stops. So, I mean, that's for equity and connectivity, that's huge.
It sounds transformative. Noah, in the last 10 seconds or so that we have here, as we move through this year, what should riders and advocates be watching most closely to know if this so-called period of recovery is actually delivering better transit?
Does the bus show up on time?
Amen. Noah Kincade leads the Detroit Documenters. That's a civic journalism group that trains and pays residents to attend public meetings and give us the lowdown on what our leaders and neighbors are saying. Noah, thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
The Metro on WDET. Coming up, it's no secret costs are rising everywhere, from our healthcare to childcare and at the grocery store. What do Michigan libertarians think is the best way to ease the pain? We'll hear that perspective next. Stay with us.